You are approaching Saturn. You are only seconds away.
Failure and regret. Two things that everyone will experience. It's all a part of being human. And no company has had those two things more than my favorite company, Sega. That's right, I will be talking about one of Sega's biggest failures ever. It's a title that I guarantee you next to none of you have heard of. It was a title so bad that it burned $30 million in Sega's wallet and didn't make it a year on the market. That's right, I'm talking about Sakura Revolution, a mobile spin-off to the historic Sakura Wars series that was a colossal failure. So what was Sakura Revolution? Why did it fail so badly? And what's next for the franchise? Well, I'll tell you all about it. Before we depart for battle, it would be helpful if you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell as well for notifications on future videos. Some subscribers have told me that they haven't been getting notified whenever I upload a new vid, so hitting the bell will help fix that. Or just follow me on Twitter and Instagram, that helps too. With that out of the way, let's start this Taisho tale.
Welcome to the Theater of the Eye.
I've made a whole video about the history of Sakura Wars before, but to quickly sum up the series, it was the flagship series of Sega and the Sega Saturn in Japan. It was a unique blend of anime, turn-based strategy, and dating sim that gave the Saturn a unique identity. The series quickly took off in Japan and led to a huge multimedia franchise that spawned an animated series, spin-off titles, merge, a stage play, and more. Unfortunately, the series started to lose momentum in the early 2000s due to a combination of factors. Sega's departure of the hardware industry and being purchased by Sammy, changing trends in gaming, several Sakura Wars titles being axed in pre-production, key members of Sega leaving the company, and finally the poor commercial performance of Sakura Wars 5 So Long My Love, both in Japan and internationally, putting the series on ice. I still do not know why Nisa had the bright idea of launching the game in the same month as Final Fantasy XIII, aka someone had an armpit fetish on the creative team. However, after Sega released a poll asking for what franchises their fans were interested in, Sakura Wars took the top spot. That probably motivated Sega to make a new Sakura Wars game called Shin Sakura Taisen in Japan. Released in 2019 in Japan and 2020 internationally, it brought the series back into the limelight. I also did a review of that title if you're curious, but I loved it. Beautiful art, great production, memorable characters, and a fun plot made it stand out, and being able to romance 5 waifus during the lockdown was nice. While the combat was underwhelming and the lack of the original Flower Division was a letdown, those things could have been ironed out in a sequel. Despite that, the pros were very strong, and Shin Sakura Wars was one of my favorite games of 2020. I couldn't find hard numbers, but from what I've read, Sakura Wars 2020 sold well enough, and it must have motivated Sega to market the series again, with a new animated series that got a dub via Funimation, a new stage play, and a mobile game, which is the subject of this video, that game being Sakura Revolution. Mobile games get a bad reputation for justifiable reasons, but you cannot deny the reach and cash potential they have. With a console game, you need a TV, the console itself, and cash for the game, and games can be pricey. Plus, Japan is surprisingly computer illiterate, so not everyone is willing to drop the money on a custom build. Furthermore, space in metro areas such as Tokyo lack space, so mobile devices are the primary way of communication and entertainment in the country. Everybody has a phone, maybe 2, and if you're commuting an hour to work every day, you're probably just staring at your phone anyway, and you might as well play a game to pass the time. Sega knows this and has had several successful mobile titles, such as Puyo Quest, Sonic Dash, Fists of North Star Revive, Yakuza Online, among others. They have also had duds like Sonic Runners and Virtual Fighter Cool Champ, but that's par for the course. Gotta shoot a blank before you can get the money shot. Sakura Revolution, developed by Delightworks, also behind the Cash Cow Fate Grand Order, was announced by Sega in September 2020. The game takes place in the 2000s, where the Taisho era never ended. Could you imagine a timeline where the 2000s never ended? We'd all look like the characters from that scene in the club scene from the movie Clock Stoppers. And I'm talking the whole 9 yards. I want the Jankos, the frosted tips, the really awkward looking crop tops, chain wallets, and let's go a step beyond that. I want TRL coming back, the Dreamcast, boy bands, new metal. That is the America I want to live in. Demons, called Koki, are appearing in Japan, and the government keeps conspiring. A new combat review is established to fight the Koki and find the truth. Along the way, the player character, Captain Oishi, must gather troops to fight the power. Sega made a short animation to hype the game up, and Sakura Revolution would formally launch in Japan on December 14th, 2020. Sakura Revolution is what you expect for a game like this. It's called a dramatic RPG, which is code for a gacha game with strategy elements. Seems standard, but I'm guessing the gameplay wasn't too good. Finding raw footage of the game on YouTube or Nico Nico was really difficult, as most vids I found were just people complaining about the game. By looking at the footage, the gameplay isn't anything special, or at the very least, it didn't translate the Sakura Wars formula into mobile form, nor did it do anything to stand out from competing gacha titles. Even the ultra combos are really underwhelming. They're just combo attacks without any flair. Granted, this is a mobile game, so concessions needed to be made, but I feel like Sega could have made a more visually appealing game. Speaking of presentation, that also took a hit. While this is not the ugliest game around, it's boring. One thing that made Sakura Wars so special was the steampunk Taisho era aesthetic. It looks really cool, especially in the PlayStation 4 game. It's like a look at a different reality. And to be fair, Sakura Revolution is limited in scope and platform, so there's only so much they could do, but come on, look at this. Am I looking at a Sakura Wars title or some generic idol shit that has performers that are way too young to be wearing short skirts or have double Ds? You could say this was any cheap mobile game and it would make sense. And come on, no frosted tips? You can't have something be set in the early 2000s and not have the frosted tips or Jankos. And while I'm on the subject of character designs, while they aren't bad, they are forgettable. Think of the original Combat Review. Those characters are iconic. Merchandise of Sakura Shin Guji is still being made. Or look at the characters from Shin Sakura Wars. They're different, sure, but they have the benefit of being designed by Bleach author Taite Kubo. And you have to remember, Revolution also had to compete against other gacha titles looking for that sweet, sweet Kumar money. Let's compare some other competing titles, such as Fate Grand Order. While that game is total gibberish, the character designs are pretty memorable and distinct. Same with Grand Blue Fantasy, which Sakura Wars did a crossover with. Really cool and dynamic designs united by a unique art style. Though really your favorite characters are the characters you crank your hog to. Sakura Revolution's characters are just anime girls. That's it. I don't get a lot of information from their appearance as they all just kind of blend in together. The male playable character, Oishi, might take the cake in the boring department. Old boy looks like he eats pasta with no sauce and jerks it to the women's tennis. That's how boring that dude is. With Revolution competing in the huge market that is gacha games, it lacked the style, sex appeal, and most importantly, star power to stand out, and I cannot stress that enough. You have a Sakura Wars game with no Sakura Shinguchi, no Amamiya, no Ogami, no Kamiyama, no Kana, no Gemini, no Anastasia or her giant knockers. No one from the fucking games were in Revolution. Whatever glue Sega was huffing during Revolution's development must have been some really good stuff, because you must have been on some really powerful glue to think Sakura Revolution was going to be any kind of success. Just to recap, we have a game in a legacy series that didn't have the characters, setting, or gameplay of the established franchise or the new reboot, nor did it do anything new or different from the many competing waifu gacha games in Japan. So the people who liked Sakura Wars couldn't be bothered to check out Revolution, and non-fans were just going to stick to their game of choice. To the surprise of absolutely nobody, the first month pulled in very little money and the game ranked 215th on Japanese mobile games for December 2020. Things never turned around. It was clear this game was going nowhere fast and was just going to be a money sink, so Sega and Delight Works put the game out of its misery and shut down Sakura Revolution in July 2021. The revival of Sakura Wars has been a mixed bag. The console game was a mild commercial success and did its job of getting the series back into minor relevance. The anime was considered middle of the road, and the stage play got delayed because of the corona. I wanted to go see it, but I was going through some stuff at the time, unfortunately, and Sakura Revolution cost $30 million. Yeah. I feel like Revolution was doomed from the start, as it felt so disconnected from the core franchise. The few commonalities that it shared with the series weren't obvious to those who were fans of the series, and Revolution did nothing to stand out in a sea of titles. Compare this to, say, Uma Musume, that waifu derby game which launched in early 2021. That game pulled in nearly $1 billion. I guess people want to bang horses now. I feel like Sega tried way too hard to make lightning strike twice with the Sakura Wars reboot. While the game was good, the brand had really cooled off since the 90s and never had any presence in English-speaking regions. I feel like if they had established the brand more with, say, a sequel to the reboot that fixed the issues of that game, or gave the classic games a proper HD port and translation, it would have maybe eased people more into Sakura Wars and by extension Revolution. Instead, they went the Final Fantasy XV route, where they just assume everything will be Daijobu, but in reality they tried way too hard to establish a multimedia franchise when it barely had its foot through the door. Then again, Final Fantasy has always been relevant in North America and Europe, unlike Sakura Wars. And both Sakura Revolution and Final Fantasy 15 cost their parent companies nearly $30 million. Weird coincidence. At the very least, Final Fantasy 15 lives on through the mobile game and Noctis being in Tekken 7. If Tifa isn't a guest character in Tekken 8, that'd be a horribly missed opportunity. Also, put Roll back into that game, please. It's a bit too early to say if Sakura Wars is dead again, but it's looking grim. The reboot game got the name back into people's minds and introduced a new generation to the franchise, but I think it could have done a bit more. And as for Sakura Revolution, it just reached way too hard for that gacha money, and as a result, it couldn't stand out in a sea of gacha nonsense, and it ignored what people loved about the franchise in the first place. Sakura Wars was a look at a different world and gave us timeless characters that people remember to this day. Revolution failed spectacularly at doing anything. I hope Sega doesn't take this as a sign that the series can't find a new fanbase. I would hate to see this series wilt away again. And that is my look at Sakura Revolution finished, and I hope you learned something new today. As you noticed, I didn't really talk about the game itself, as there really isn't a whole lot to say there. It was kind of an underwhelming mobile game. It was more like a combination of the game itself and everything in the periphery that caused it to flop so hard. For me, the saddest part about this video is that we don't know what else Sega had in store for the series. Like, could you imagine the original Sakura Wars games coming to digital platforms like Switch or PC and localized for the first time outside of Japan? Or maybe a sequel to Shin Sakura Wars that fixed the issues of that title, like, say, tying it more to the original games more, or having better combat. Like, imagine Shin Sakura Wars 2 playing like, say, Yakuza or Virtual On. That would be flames! But we gotta be real here, I don't see much coming from Sakura Wars in the future, but I would love to be proven wrong, and hopefully it doesn't involve NFTs, but we'll just leave it at that. And thank you for watching. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed watching the video, and if you like this video, you know what to do. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell as well for notifications on future videos. And do hit that bell. People have not been getting notified whenever I upload, and that would really be helpful if you guys watched. Or just follow me on the social media, Twitter, Instagram @ZMings. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Later everybody, take care.